Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is the second 75K tutorial. And this one was requested by Jgfmusic, and it is a track by a guy named Puppets. It's a Monster Cat release, and it sounds like this. It's the ARP. He wants to know how to do the ARP, and this is what I got. I don't know if the notes are right and the rhythm's wrong, whatever, but that's pretty much the sound. And it's a little bit weird, it's a little bit kind of off, and that's because one thing I don't have right in the sound right now is the 4 tons of white noise that are on that track and the really big fuzzy bass on the bottom, which do a good job of convoluting just about everything to do with what's happening right there. And honestly, those are the more difficult parts of that. But the thing I like about this ARP is that it has one element in it that people don't necessarily attribute to the thing that creates that kind of pluck sound. And that is the pitch fall. This guy here. I have unison on, and I also have the EQ kind of down, and that's because like it doesn't. If you look at the spectrum of it in the example that I showed, it sort of disappears up there. And I don't know if it's because it's just overpowered by the white noise, or if it's because it's actually mixed and the high frequencies are diminished a bit to have room for the white noise. In either case, there's not really a lot of high frequencies happening in the sound, other than the big percussive pitch drop, which is what we've got a lot of happening. But if you wanted to, no big deal. I have it like completely panned, and I also have the phase all the way up. And this actually is a very interesting thing about the phase being all the way up, and that's that it kind of randomizes the phases a little bit. And that's good, because if I didn't, while it'd be nice and big in stereo, it would also be leaning one way or the other. And if you have sort of randomized phases, it is spread a little bit more evenly. And I also spread it all the goddamn way, which doesn't necessarily mean that there's no mono whatsoever. It just means that it's evenly on both sides. And again, because the mix so ridiculously, I mean, this was difficult for me to tell. I actually had to mid-side, like, I had to mute or the mid or the side just to see what it was doing in the original song to tell that there even was stereo. Yeah, so the pitch fall is a big part of that. But when we're doing this in harmony, there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind. There's 2 settings. There's the ramping, which determines how long it takes for it to kind of fully actualize. It's kind of like a very, very, very short attack on things, but it does kind of dilute the impact of stuff that has impact. So if you want more impact, turn that off. Another thing that since we're doing the pitch fall is this grain button down here. And what this stands for is envelope granularity. And what that means is that while we go to the pitch fall, we can see we have this nice curvy looking thing going on. And how smooth and completely perfect it is, this is not actually what it's doing. It's actually doing sort of like an angular version of this. And how angular it is, how closely it resembles this particular curvature, is determined by the envelope granularity. Higher values mean it's less granular, because it's by millisecond. So up here it's set, this is 2.5, 3 milliseconds, all the way down as half a millisecond to when it determines when the changes is. And this because this is pitch movement, this is dramatically changes how the thing sounds. You can even see it in Harmer's visualizer, how different it is. Here you can see it's a bit more higher resolution, and then here you see that it's like it's kind of cutting through a couple, but not really doing a lot to it. So if you're doing really fast, like envelope-based movements on sounds, you want to have low granularity, which increases CPU usage as well. So that's why generally you don't want to do that. But I'm only using average right now. Perfect doesn't really do much. So those are the important parts of that. But the whole of this relies on the idea of the pitch fall, which this is very short. And how you do this easily, by the way, because if you have snap on, you might see that it snaps, which is not enough. But if you hold down shift and then you grab something, it doesn't let you change its vertical value, which we have snap on right now, so it doesn't matter anyway. But if I had snap off, because I say I wanted to move it in farther, and I hold down shift, I can do that, and it'll still stay at the pitch that I want it to stay at, which is good because that center value is just the correct pitch, the pitch of the note you're playing. Anything more or less than that will be a higher or lower pitch, and that might, it will screw things up. So how angular this is will determine essentially how hard it hits. To being perfectly hard, where it doesn't even sound like you're moving pitch. It just sounds like an impact versus slow enough that you can tell that's moving your pitches. This, by the way, is pretty much how any kind of impact on any sound whatsoever is made. Snares, kicks, toms, any of that. It's basically this kind of stuff. Yeah, so I'm not going to put this up there because, come on, man, this is a saw wave with a pitch mod. That's all there is to it. The special stuff is in here, which I mentioned, envelope granularity and ramping. Basically turn them off and you'll be fine. And then unison and stuff. But everything else, it's all kind of like what you want to do with it. And honestly, the thing that made it work in the mix the most in this particular song was what everything else was doing. So have fun with that. Anyway, if you would like to make a request for the 75K tutorials, of which this was the second one, please go to the Reddit thread linked in the description of this video. Any requests made anywhere else will be ignored completely. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.